Welcome to the Big Picture Film Club. My guest today is Gabriel Shipton, film producer and brother of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Gabriel is the producer behind Ithaka, the documentary that details Julian's current fight for freedom as he faces extradition to the US. It's currently playing at a number of film festivals and will be playing at the Soho London Independent Film Festival in November. Gabriel, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, Presh. Good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sort of for your time. The film's played at a sort of a number of film festivals now, and I wanted to get, initially your thoughts on how the film's been received and the feedback, and what you've sort of taken from people's responses to the film.
Yeah, generally, people are, very moved. They, the afterwards, the audiences, they just want to know, what can we do? How can we help? And
Right.
I think the film moves them in a way that, sort of motivates them as well. And by seeing these two, everyday normal people, fighting for justice, fighting for a sort of global cause against the global hegemon. I think people feel empowered as well. They see these people on the screen doing this, and they think, I can do something too. I can, make a difference. So that's the general feeling. We see different responses as we take the film around the world. In Mexico, we showed it in Mexico, and that was probably, people there, they have our audiences there have a direct experience with persecution.
Right.
And so they understood what our characters were going through. And so, people would bring their families along. We a lot of people's mums and daughters and sons would come to the film because, at the end of the day, it's a family film also. It's a family story.
Yeah,
About a father fighting for his son, a family with Stella Assange, Julian's wife, and their two kids. And, it's this family in crisis, but also taking control of their destiny. And I think that really resonated with the Mexican audiences, interestingly.
Yeah. And so for people that I guess that don't know, or kind of out of the scope, and they may have in the mainstream news kind of heard the name Julian Assange, kind of know WikiLeaks, or like, for what is WikiLeaks? And we know it was set up in 2006, but for people who don't know what WikiLeaks itself is, what is the website or the platform sort of designed to do?
Well, you said WikiLeaks came around in 2006. So, as technology and the internet grew up, encryption and like onion routing, like Tor, like these anonymization services, so did the ability of states to track us, to monitor, what we're doing, and particularly how journalists communicate with their sources. So one element of WikiLeaks was, how do we protect sources in this modern day? Journalists didn't used to use encryption. Now it's sort of standard across the board. But journalists were communicating with sources via email. So WikiLeaks sort of pioneered this anonymous Dropbox in journalism, where a leaker could just anonymously drop information to the WikiLeaks website, and their identity would be protected. It's also like a decentralization of media and leaking as well. Traditionally, leaks are held by these media corporations or media organizations, right? But in the world where we have all these big data leaks now, WikiLeaks served as like a decentralizer of that. So it was really a revolutionary technology platform that was this decentralization of media and a source protection and journalistic protection outfit.
And and sort of kind of following that, I guess Julian's sort of troubles begins really in 2010, from what I can kind of get at the timeline, where sort of the U.S. Attorney General is sort of looking to charge Julian Assange under the Espionage Act. And this kind of follows the leaks by Chelsea Manning as well, from leaking classified information. And so just to be clear, from like 2010 up until this point, Julian has never actually been convicted of anything. That would be correct, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he has been convicted of a breach of bail charge for when he was given asylum by Ecuador.
Right.
The UK government saw that as a breach of bail. So technically, yes, but he hasn't been convicted in relation to any of the work that he's done. The work publishing those leaks you mentioned, the Afghan war diaries, Iraq war log, the cable set, Guantanamo detainee file. So that this is the first time he's been charged with publishing that stuff. But no, he's never been convicted of anything related to that activity.
And one thing I really liked about the documentary is kind of knowing sort of Julian Assange and kind of his kind of what he's going through in terms of his fight for extradition. We as the public never got a sort of insight to how that really affects the family, the support network, and the documentary really highlights that well. And through the documentary, you see, how the family sticks together, but also how it's very strained. What do you think has kind of helped you and the family sort of be a support to each other over these years?
Yeah, well, I guess we're all in this together, and we all work together quite closely. Stella, John, and I, are in constant contact, and I guess it's supporting each other through this. We have a loved one who is in he's an innocent man. He's he's not convicted of any crime, and he's not serving a sentence, but he's in prison, and so this sort of is a crisis for us, and a crisis that we're trying to solve and trying to deal with. But it also, it's part of something bigger as well, because what's happening to Julian, it could happen to anybody who publishes this sort of information. Julian has been made an example of to really silence leakers, publishers, anybody who wants to publish classified information about any of the US-led wars or US foreign policy, or how the US or Washington conducts itself in relation to terrorist prisoners and things like that. If you publish any of this information, they're saying this could happen to you. We can take away all of your rights. We can take away, Julian, he hasn't, he's been held incommunicado, right? Nobody's heard his voice for 4 years. He hasn't been able to attend his hearings. He's applied every time, but hasn't been able to attend because his permission has been rejected since January 2021. So he's sort of been taken away from view, and that's what will happen to you if you publish this stuff. That's the message that's been sent, and so it's it is about us and our families. Fight to free our loved one, but it's also bigger, and I think that binds us together as well. We're not just fighting for Julian, but we're fighting for this higher purpose.
And you kind of touched on it in that answer, but I guess where do you see sort of the direction of investigative journalism going? I mean, do you think this really sort of closes the net in on would-be leakers, or does this give people journalists more impetus to sort of further fight and kind of leak information that's in the public good?
Well, I think we've already seen the chilling effect here. That Julian's persecution has had on investigative journalism. no, we haven't had a major data leak, since of US classified material since Snowden, right? We had Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Hale, who was a drone leaker, Reality Winner, who was she leaked some documents regarding Trump. But really, we haven't seen any sort of these big data leaks being leaked to journalists since Snowden. So I think you can see already that this chilling effect that has happened, and all these leakers that I mentioned, they've all been charged under the Espionage Act and sentenced to prison, right? Like, even though the information they brought to us, is in the public interest, is about crimes that have been committed, is about civilian deaths in the instance of the drone leaks. Those leakers are being charged, and what's happened to Julian is an extension of that. So the leakers are charged, and then the publishers. So I think it's already having that effect on investigative journalism, particularly about what the US is up to.
And in the making of the film, I guess, was there any thoughts in your mind about security concerns for your own family, in terms of perhaps exposing your family to sort of unwanted elements, as opposed to in terms of your communication with Julian, or how it may be perceived, or them sort of looking into your life more so, having sort of access to your life in the way that they otherwise wouldn't?
Yeah, well, I guess we can answer that in two parts, right? So we had very rigorous security protocol around how we our sort of post-production pipeline, from when the images and sound was recorded in the camera to how that got to the editing, and then how that was processed to get the final product. So we had some very strict and never sort of before used by a lot of the people we worked with security protocol to make sure that we were protected, because it's an ongoing legal case, right? Like we can't. There's some things that we cannot share, because we don't want the other side to know, as you do in these sorts of cases. So there was a very much this, I guess, a blanket of security around all the footage and everything that we processed, to make sure that we didn't, we weren't, compromising the legal process to the detriment of Julian. And in terms of exposing our families, I mean, we, John and Stella have given up so much of their private lives for this cause. That their personal story is sort of their superpower in a way when it comes to advocating for Julian. So it's always this, trying to balance that with your personal privacy and what can be achieved by sharing your story and sharing your personal life with more people to help them understand what's actually going on.
Well, Gabriel, it's all the time we have, and I know you're busy, but thank you very much once again for your time today. And I know people can also book their own screening or host their own screening. How would they sort of go about doing that of Ithaka?
Yeah, so you can go to the Ithaka website, which is ithakamovie.com, ITHAKA movie.com. And then you just click on host a screening and you fill out the web form, and then someone will get back to you about how to host a screening. We've had that's been very popular, actually. Lots of people hosting screenings at universities, festivals all over the world, that's been quite popular, and it's a great thing to do to just sort of spread the word about Julian's case, but also show a great film.
Awesome, Gabriel. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Fresh.